everyone, welcome to another Procreate tutorial. This is the drawing that we will be completing in today's video. If you are new here, I mainly post Procreate tutorials, so if that is something you are interested in, go ahead and subscribe. Otherwise, before we get started, the only thing you will need to do is download the color palette. I have it linked in the description below. It's totally free to download, so just open up the file that downloads and it'll automatically pop into Procreate so that you can use the same colors as you follow along with the video today. So take a second to go and grab that and then come back and we will get started. First things first, we will go over our canvas dimensions. They are 10 inches by 10 inches at 300 dpi or 3000 by 3000 pixels. The color profile that we're using is the second one on the RGB list. And by the end of the video, we've used about 15 layers, so make sure that you have at least that many layers available by checking here. If you do not, you can always lower your DPI here to get more. And this is our pretty color palette that we're using today. So that being said, let's just go ahead and get started. So we are firstly going to be on layer 1. We are going to grab the second color on the top row of our color palette and we are going to drag and drop that onto the screen. Next, we will grab the third color on the top row and on the same layer, we will grab our selection tool, set it to rectangle with color fill turned on, and maybe a third of the way down the screen, we will start our rectangle outside of our canvas and drag it all the way to the right and down below it, and then let it go to fill it in. At this point, we will click our wand tool, click a Gaussian blur, and slide that up to maybe 50% to give a nice gradient there. And this will be our main background underneath our circle, and then we'll do the mountains and water on top of it, but this is kind of the sky in our background. So now we are going to make the little cutout for our waterfall and our circle design so that we can draw everything behind it. So in order to do this, we are going to do a weird trick, but we are going to go to our layer menu, add a new layer on top of this layer, grab the first color on the first row, grab our monoline brush under the calligraphy tab, and set it to whatever size you want. I'll do maybe 50 to 60%. And the first thing I'm going to do is draw a circle. Hold your pen down, touch your finger to the screen to make it a perfect circle, maybe about this big. Go ahead and fill in the middle of it. Click the arrow tool, make sure that snapping is turned on in the bottom left, and snap it to the center of your canvas where you see the vertical yellow line. We don't want it to be in the very center, top to bottom as well, just center from left to right and then up a little bit on our screen. Maybe about to right here. And then let's go to our layer menu, add a new layer on top of this one. Same color, grab the selection tool with rectangle and color fill turned on still. And let's just start somewhere in the middle of the circle here and draw a kind of rectangle shape. Nice and long and skinny. Not too skinny, but this will be our waterfall, so maybe about this thick. And then again, arrow tool. Make sure that snapping is turned on and let's drag this again to the center of our screen where we see the vertical yellow line. Make sure it's going all the way off the bottom, our rectangle. And now we have a picture kind of like this. So in order to kind of invert this so that we have this outside filled in instead of the middle, but we had to do it this way so that we could get all of our shapes lined up and in the center perfectly. So let's go to our layer menu, snap these two layers together on the same layer by sliding them together with your fingers. Click on this layer, set it to reference, add a new layer, and with the same color, we are just going to drag and drop on the outside of our shape here. And now they're on two separate layers, but since we sent this one to reference, this one now used that as a reference and filled around it. So now we are going to delete our reference layer with the inner part of our shape, and now we're just left with the outside. So now we can fill in everything behind this layer here, and we will have this nice outline. So that being said, let's just move right along. So let's add a new layer on top of our background layer here with our purple colors on it, underneath our little keyhole layer here. And the first thing that we are going to do is draw the mountains. So on this layer, we are going to grab the first color on the second row of our color palette. We're going to grab our selection tool again. This time we're going to set it to freehand. Make sure color fill is still turned on. So I am first going to draw the back mountain. So essentially our water will probably start like a third of the way up our circle, maybe about right here. And the mountains we want to fill in maybe this middle third of our circle. So from about this point to this point. We're going to do 3 separate mountains, then we'll fill in the sky and do the water. So the bottom of our mountains don't matter because we will make the water in front of it and it'll be a perfect horizontal line. So we don't need to get the bottoms of our mountain perfectly horizontal, but we can kind of try. But we'll start a little bit lower since the water is going to cover them up. So I am, for this backmost mountain, I'm going to start on the outside of my circle here, maybe about halfway through, and I'm going to make a point. So just touch your screen to make a dot. Then I'm going to make another dot maybe right here, and this will be a peak of the mountain. Then let's go down and make another dot. Maybe go up and over a little bit. Down again. Over again. Down again. Over again. And down, and then I'll kind of just click back around over here, and then click up to our original point to connect our shape and fill it in. So this is our first mountain in the background, and we just kind of want to draw them all like this. Make sure that you're not making your points way too pointy or anything. We want a nice kind of gradual mountain shape. But let's just do the same thing. Let's add another new layer, and this time we will draw another one on this side, and then we'll have the one on the left be the one in the very front. So grab our selection tool again on freehand with color fill turned on. This time maybe I'll start a little bit higher, but then we'll go down right away. Maybe go down again so that this whole mountain is just kind of in front of our other mountain. But kind of try to vary the way that your shapes are so that it's not the same exact shape every single time. And then again, I'll just kind of go across the bottom and then fill this in. Obviously, since it's the same color, we can't really see what this one looks like yet, but we will when we add some highlights and stuff to it. But let's go ahead and add another new layer, and this time we'll start on the left. So grab our selection tool again, and maybe start about halfway up our circle. Go up again. Maybe something about like that. So this is our leftmost mountain shape now. So now we have all 3 of them laid out, and we will add the highlights. But let's first start with the very back one. So let's turn off these front 2 that we drew last, and we'll start with the one that we drew first here. So click on this layer, turn on alpha lock, and grab the 3rd color on the 2nd row. Same selection tool method again, and this time we're just going to add a highlight to the very tips of all of our points here. So again, with freehand and color fill turned on, I'm just going to start kind of on the outside of my mountain here to add a highlight to the tip of this mountain. So I'll make a point on the outside, make a point in, make a point down, and kind of make like a little cut here. So I'm going to make a point pretty straight up and then pretty straight back down to make a little pointy point there. Then maybe down this way, and maybe another little cut again, and then down, and then kind of follow the shape going all the way down. And then this time we'll go around the top side of our mountain a couple times so we can connect back to our original point. And now we have a highlight like this. So this is what we want to do kind of for each one. We don't want to follow the original lines exactly. We kind of want to make some random little cuts and stuff to make a pretty fun little highlight there. And now we will turn on our next layer, and turn off the one that we were just on so that we can see just this one next mountain. Click on it, turn on alpha lock, same color selection tool again, and we will just do the same thing. Starting on the outside, going in, maybe making a little cut right away. And then going around to connect to the top. So now we have a highlight like this. And then again, let's turn this one off, turn our next one on. Click on this layer, turn on alpha lock, selection tool again. Start maybe here. And then go around and connect. So now we can turn on our other layers and we can see where all of our highlights are now. One thing that I'm going to do is I don't want my highlights to run into each other like these two are. The left one is fine because it's going to run into the other ones, but these two I want to be a little bit more separated. So I'm going to grab my middle layer here, click the arrow tool and just reposition it maybe about right there so we have a nice gap in between our highlight and our next mountain and its highlight. So something about like that. I also maybe just want to select both of my back layers and move them up just a little bit so we can see a little bit more of them above our other mountain on the left. So just kind of make some adjustments if you need to, just to kind of get your mountains to a better place where you like where they're at. And we want a nice amount of room in the sky to work with. But I think I can move all of mine up just a little bit, about right there. So again, this is kind of wonky on the bottom, but we will make sure to cut it off nicely with our water in a nice horizontal fashion to cover that up. But we are also going to add some highlights to our mountains now and some texture. So let's just start with this leftmost mountain that's on our top layer. Alpha lock's already turned on, that is what we want. And we are first going to grab the second color on the second row, switch our brush to the to be compressed charcoal brush under the charcoals menu, set that to maybe 30 to 40%. And I'm just going to use this towards the bottom and the base of our mountain, not really going towards the highlighted area, just sticking in this darker color towards the bottom portion of it, about like that. Then we'll grab this third color on the top row and focus that on the top half, kind of blending in with our darker color. And then we will grab this fourth color on the second row and focus this just on the very top part of our mountain. Like this. And then even further, we will grab this fifth color on the second row, drop our brush size to maybe 15 to 20% and focus this just on the very tips of our highlighted portion here to add a really nice highlight there all the way down the top side of our mountain, like so. And we will just do that for each of them. So let's grab the next one. Alpha lock's already turned on. Let's first start with our darkest color, the second one on the second row. Put our size back up to 30 to 40% and focus this all across the bottom portion that we can see here. Then let's grab the fourth color on the second row and focus this just on the top part until we kind of run into our darker part there and overlap them a little bit nicely. And then grab the fifth color on the second row, drop the size back to maybe 15% and focus this just on the very edges, following the shape of our mountain to add a really nice highlight there. Again, kind of going lightly next to it just to kind of blend it in a little bit better so it's not super harsh or anything. And then our last mountain, let's move to that layer. Alpha lock's already turned on. Grab the second color on the second row, up our size to 30 to 40%. And just do the parts that we can see. We can't see much of it since it's pretty far in the background, but let's do it anyway. Then let's move to the fourth color on the second row and do the same thing on the top, half. And lastly, our fifth color on the second row, back down to 15%. And again, focus that just on the very tippy tops of our shapes. Okay, make any other adjustments if you need to on any of your mountains, and then we will move on. So first, while we're here, let's go ahead and do our sky. So let's add a new layer right above our background layer with our purples on it. We are going to stick with this fifth color on the second row, and we are going to draw first our moon in the sky. So let's just first switch back to our monoline brush under the calligraphy tab, set it to again about 40 to 50%. And first we're just going to draw a perfect circle in the sky, hold it down, touch your finger to the screen to make it a perfect circle, about this size right in here, and fill it in. Then we are going to grab our selection tool. This time we will set it to ellipse and turn off color fill. And then we're just going to start right on the outside upper right area of our circle that we drew here on this same layer. Start about right here and draw towards our moon until we get a nice selection where you can see the outside part of our circle here is going to be our nice crescent moon shape. And then let go, click the arrow tool, drag that part off the screen. So now we just are left with our crescent shape. If you need to, you can click the arrow tool and you can rotate it or resize it a little bit. And that is our moon. Now with our same monoline brush, same color on the same layer, we are going to make some little stars in the sky. So first I'm going to have my monoline brush at about 60%, and I'm just going to make some dots in the sky. Just a few. These are going to be our bigger stars. Then I'm going to drop the size to maybe 30% and make some more smaller ones to kind of complete where all of our stars are and kind of fill out the rest of our sky. Maybe about like that. And once you have your stars and moon where you like them, we are going to go to our layer menu, make a duplicate of this layer. On the bottom one that pops up, we are going to click on it, click the wand icon, click Gaussian Blur, and drag that up to maybe 10 to 15% to add a nice glow in the background of our moon and stars. Next, we're going to add the water. So let's go to our layer menu, add a new layer on top of our mountains below our little keyhole outline layer. And we are going to grab the first color on the last row, grab our selection tool again, switch it back to rectangle with color fill turned on, and we are going to make a rectangle to create our water. So I'm going to start outside of our shape here, about a third of the way up from the bottom of our circle, a little below halfway of our circle, wherever in there kind of works for you. Start there, and then I'm going to drag it until I get a little bit far into our keyhole, maybe just a quarter of the way down our rectangular portion there, and let it go. And this will be where our water starts. Now I cut off a little bit more of my last mountain than I wanted to, so I'm going to click the arrow tool and drag it down just a little bit until we can see a little bit more of that. Maybe about to right there. So make an adjustment if you need to, but this is where our water will start. Now on the same layer with the same color, I'm going to use my monoline brush, and I'm going to make the little chunk of this that's going to be the waterfall. So right here, I am going to start and just make a wavy little line kind of like this, right underneath where my rectangle ends there, and then fill that in. And this will be the first little chunk of our waterfall that we can see. I do need 3 sections of the waterfall, and this is a little bit low. So next I am going to just use my selection tool on a rectangle, turn off color fill, and I am just going to select this bottom little chunk, click my arrow tool and move it up a little bit. So now that part of our waterfall is right there. So now we have a little bit more room. So this is what your picture should look like. So make adjustments if you need to. I'm also just going to kind of smooth this out a little bit. Next, I'm going to add a new layer. I'm going to drag it below this layer that we just created. And I am going to grab the 5th color on the last row. I'm going to start here about 1/3 of the way up from our rectangle now, and I'm going to make another little wavy kind of line, and then I'm going to draw around the back of my other one until I can connect it so that I can fill in this section here with this slightly darker color. And then lastly, I'm going to add another new layer, drag it below this layer again so it's right above our mountains. And I'm going to grab the 5th color on the 2nd row, and I'm just going to grab my selection tool with rectangle and color fill turned on again and draw a rectangle to cover this last section that's showing underneath. So now we have 3 steps to our waterfall. If you need to make any more adjustments, you can. I might click on this middle one, click the arrow tool and move it up just a little bit so it looks about like that. And now we will do some shading and highlighting. So let's start with this middle one again. So not our darkest color on the bottom, but the one in between. Let's find that layer on our layer menu, click on it, turn on alpha lock, and then we are going to grab this 3rd color on the last row, and we are going to switch back to our to be compressed charcoal brush under the charcoals category, set that to maybe 20%, and I am just going to lightly add a little bit of this highlight to the end bottom section of this waterfall chunk, like so. And then this darkest one we're going to leave alone because we will put the little mist that's rising at the bottom above it, so we don't need to do anything with this darkest one. So now we will just focus on our biggest light one here that goes in front of our mountains. So find that layer, click on it, turn on alpha lock, and we will add some highlights and shadows to this one now. So let's just grab the 2nd color on the 5th row first, same charcoal brush at about 20%, and let's focus this first right on the tips of the waterfall part here, and then let's also focus it right through the center of our water part as well, like so. And then let's grab this 3rd color on the 5th row and focus this towards the outside to add some texture and shadows over there. Next, we will add even more highlights to our water area here. Let's go ahead and add a new layer above those water layers, below our keyhole layer. Click on the N on this layer and set it to overlay. Select this 4th color on the 2nd row, and we're going to again use our selection tool, this time with freehand and color fill turned on. So kind of like we did for our mountains, we're just going to make some little streaks through the water here by making some little like really sharp triangles. So let's start on the right side here, outside of our circle, make a dot, go in a little bit, almost horizontal, make another dot, and then zoom in here so that we don't hit this other dot because we're going to make another dot very close to it at a slight little angle so it's a little wider here and comes to a nice point in the middle, and then connect it to our original dot to close that shape. So this is kind of what we're going to do a few times. So let's just go to the other side now, make another one close to the top. So let's click our selection tool again, start outside, make a dot, let's go in maybe even further than our original point was, make a point right there, zoom in again so that we don't connect to our original dot right away, make a point, and then close the shape. Okay, let's make another one on this side again, a little bit lower. So let's start here and make our first dot. Let's go in maybe shorter distance this time. Make a dot there and connect. And again on this side, again, maybe make a shorter one. And then maybe another really long one from this side. Maybe another really short one, maybe another one really close to this one, kind of in between them. To kind of give some variety. And then again, maybe another one closer to this one, shorter. And one last one over here. Something maybe like that. So we kind of had, you know, every other, then these two together, and then this last one. If you need to make any adjustments, you can. You can use your selection tool, turn color fill off, and like this one got a little lopsided, so I'm just going to straighten it out a little bit. So make any adjustments if you need to. I'm going to kind of move my whole layer up just a little bit to be a little more centered on there. And now, as you can see, after I moved it, this one is now not connected to my edge. So I'm going to, again, use my selection tool to select around it and move it over so it's off the edge again. So now your drawing should look something like this. And next we are going to add the mountain reflection in the water. So we are going to go to our layer menu. We are going to select all three of our mountain layers. So click on one, slide right on the other two to select them as well. Click to group them together. This way we don't have to mess with our original mountains and mess them up. If we ever wanted to go back to them and make any adjustments, we could by leaving them on separate layers. But for our reflection, we need them on the same layer. So I just minimize the group. I'm going to make a duplicate of the group, drag this new one up above our water layer, but below our little chunky highlights that we just did. Click on the group and select flatten. Click on it again, set it to a clipping mask so that it clips to this water layer here, our big main water layer. Now we are going to click the arrow tool, click flip vertical, and then make sure it's on freeform. And then let's move it down so that we can see kind of the bottom of our mountain. And then since freeform is turned on, we're going to use this bottom middle one and drag it this way to make them skinnier. And then just kind of place them somewhere so that we can kind of see the three different mountains, make them skinnier again if you need to, and then kind of line them up with our original mountain if possible. Maybe about like this. Then we are going to go to our layer menu again, now that we have it placed. Click on the N on this layer and we are going to drag the opacity down to maybe 50% so that we just have a nice light reflection of our mountains and it's not super overpowering. If you even want to adjust and drag the opacity down more, you totally can, whatever you like. I think 40 to 50% looks pretty good. Okay, so now we just have 2 steps left. We're going to make our little puff of water at the bottom. So let's go ahead and do that next. First, we are going to add a texture to the entire picture here underneath our keyhole still. So let's add a new layer above all of our main layers right below our keyhole layer. Click on the N on this layer and drag it up to overlay again. And we are going to use this first color on the last row. Make sure we're on our to be compressed charcoal brush still. Set the size to like 50 to 60%. And I'm just going to very lightly drag this all over the picture just to create a nice little texture to everything, including the sky and anything else that didn't get textured already. And lastly, we will add our little puff of water at the bottom that sprays up from our waterfall, and we will add that on top of all of our layers, including on top of this keyhole layer. We will still use this first color on the last row, And we are going to switch back to our monoline brush under the calligraphy tab, set to maybe 30%. And we are just going to start on the outside here of where our waterfall is. Make a curved line, make another smaller one maybe, and we'll just kind of make curved lines like this going all the way around in varying sizes and directions until we get to the other side towards the bottom and connect back to the bottom there. And then we will fill that in. And then we will go to our layer menu. On this layer, click the N and drag the opacity down to maybe 70 to 80%. Make any adjustments that you need to. And then that is it for our drawing today. That is our last step to finish our picture. So that being said, I hope you had fun. If you did, go ahead and give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you'd like to see more tutorials from me in the future. If you would like to share your drawing on Instagram, I would love to see it, so go ahead and post it and then tag me so that I can check it out. While you're there, go ahead and give me a follow so that you can see what I'm working on next. Thanks for watching!